Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? It's story time. Today what I'd like to do is read one of my favorite pieces of Dungeons and Dragons literature, and that's the example of play given in the 1979 Dungeon Master's Guide. This is my original copy. And because this video is coming on the heels of the video I did about the caller, a lot of what I'm going to talk about, because I'm going to do this with a little bit of commentary, so it's going to be a long video, just warning you. You'll see the examples or the stuff I read that gave me the picture of what the role of the caller was and how the procedures of the game were to actually happen. Also, I just want to do some housekeeping. This is not an anti-first edition Dungeons and Dragons video. I love this game. I played the hell out of this game, and with the right people, given the right circumstances, I'm gladly play it again. I'll play it every once in a while. It's just, what did this actually sound like to a 13-year-old kid in 1981 reading this, and what kind of information was I getting from these books? So first of all, I can't do this without reading a very brief passage from the Player's Handbook, where it talks about the party caller and setting up for the adventure and all that kind of stuff. And so this is a great picture of this magic mouth. I used to love that. Anyhow, some interesting stuff. First, it says here on page 109, the leader who is to make decisions and give directions for the party must be in the front rank or the second rank if he or she is tall compared to the characters before. So the leader is going to make decisions and give directions for the party. That's what this book is telling me. And back here on page 106, obedience. Let's see, what does it say right here? The leader and caller of a party might order one course of action, while various players state that their characters do otherwise. Your DM will treat such situations as confused and muddled, being certain to penalize the group accordingly. Okay, but let's go on to this. Now, this is from the first dungeon adventure, which actually starts on page 96. And in the beginning, it just talks about the fact that this is how you're going to start an adventure, and there's rumors of something in a monastery, and then a person from the town leads them to the actual monastery, and it talks about a bunch of stuff before it gets to the actual example of play. So we're going to start here on page 97. With these basic points in mind, and he's talking about secret doors and all that kind of stuff beforehand, and searching and movement. Let us return to the action of the first dungeon adventure. Assuming that the abandoned monastery is merely a burned-out shell with nothing but rubble and ruin within, the players spend only a few minutes of real time looking around before they discover a refuse-strewn flight of steep and worn stone stairs leading downwards. "Aha!" exclaims the leader of the group. "This must be the entrance to the dungeons. We'll find what we are looking for there." The other players voice agreement, and so the real adventure begins. The other players voice agreement. They didn't have a consensus about this. Let's see. What is said by the dungeon masters will be prefaced by the latter's DM, while the party of player characters will be preceded either by LC for leader, I'm assuming lead character, or OC, other character, for any of the other player characters speaking. DM, what are you going to do now? Lead character, light our torches and go down the steps. DM, fine, but I'll need the marching order you'll be in. At this point, the players either write down the names of characters with each in its respective rank, or place their painted miniature figures in actual formation. You can't play with miniatures unless they're painted. Which was terrible news for me because I was awful at it. Minimum width is about 3.5 feet per character. A 5-foot wide character requires single file. A 10-foot wide passage means up to 3 may be abreast, and up to 6 abreast can move down a 20-foot wide passageway. Please note what formation you will take in a 5-foot wide passage and what your marching order will be in a 20-foot wide area also. So, lead character, after a brief discussion with the other players. Here is the information on this sheet of notepaper. Will change if only one of us is wounded, lost, or killed. Man, talk about foreshadowing. DM, why are the gnome and the halfling in the front rank, the magic user in the middle, and the human fighter and the cleric in the rear? Lead character. That way, all 5 of us can act when we encounter an enemy. The magic user can cast spells over the heads of the short characters in front, and the pair in the back rank can do likewise, or fire missiles, or whatever is needed, including a quick move to the front. So they talk a lot here about, this talks about tactics, because he's trying to give you examples of good play in this as well, and in that and in the Player's Handbook. Okay, DM, nodding agreement. You remember that torches will spoil the improvisational capabilities of the gnome and halfling, don't you? Lead character. Certainly, but the humans must be able to see. We will go down the stairs now with weapons drawn and ready. DM. You descend southward, possibly 30 feet laterally. At the end of the stairway, you see an open space. Lead character. Enter the area and look around. DM. You are in a chamber about 30 feet across to the south and 30 feet wide east and west. There are 10-foot wide passages to the left and right and ahead, each in the center of their respective walls. The stairway you descended likewise enters the chamber in the center of the north wall. And, it talks before about mapping. So this is why these instructions are given exactly like that, or the example is given exactly like that, and somebody's supposed to be furiously drawing a map, which is a good idea. Lead character. What else do we see? DM. The floor is damp and rough. There are arches supporting the ceiling, starting from a spot about 8 feet above the floor and meeting about 20 feet height in the central dome of the place. It is difficult to tell because the whole ceiling area is covered with webs, possibly old cobwebs. Oh yes, there are some moldering sacks in the southwest corner and some rubbish jumbled in the center of the floor, which appears to be dirt, old leather, rotting cloth, and possibly sticks or bones or something similar. Lead character. A confused babble breaks out at this point with players suggesting all sorts of different actions. The leader cautions them and tries for a careful, reasoned, and methodical approach. The gnome and the halfling will hand their torches to the fighter, me, so we find out the lead character is the fighter, which always seems to happen, and the cleric. Then they will look down the east and west passages while I check the one straight ahead to the south. The cleric will check the sacks, and the magic user will examine the pile of refuse in the center of the chamber. Everyone agree? So the lead character makes this decision and then asks if people agree. This wasn't a consensus thing. What are the rest of you doing? As indicated, tell me how you're doing it, please. If miniature figures and a floor plan are being used, each player can simply move his figurine to show route of movement and final position. Otherwise, each player must describe actions just as the cleric player did above. Oh, I missed a whole line here. Sure, says the player with the cleric character. I'm moving over to the sacks now, sticking close to the left-hand wall. Of course the cleric character agreed. You know why he agreed? Because he read the passage in this book, and he didn't want to die. All right. Let's see. They are now in position. What is seen and what happens? So everybody, I guess, apparently does what they said, the lead character said. DM, just as the three are about in a position to look down the passages, and while the cleric is heading for the rotting bags, the magic user cries out, and you see something black and nasty looking upon her shoulder. She cries out. Everybody, quick, see what's attacked her. Then turning to the referee, we rush over to help kill what has attacked her. What do we see? So apparently the player of the lead character looks over to everybody else, says this, and then looks back to the DM. And it pretty much, we rush over to help kill what has attacked her. What do we see? So that's what they're doing. DM, a large spider has surprised her. As she went to examine the refuse, it dropped from its web. It landed on her back and bit her. Before you can take any action, she must make a saving throw with +2 on her die, of course. And then she and the spider must dice for initiative and fight a round of combat. After that, the rest of you can try to do something. The magic user, a 16, did I make it? This said as she rolls the die to make the required saving throw against the spider's poison. Yes, easily, so you only take 1 hit point of damage. While you mark it down, I'll roll for the spider's initiative. Beat a 3. Again, the magic user, other character. A 5. If that means I can act before the spider does, I'll grab it and throw it on the floor and stamp on it with my boot. Really interesting. What happens next? DM, roll a d20, and see if you hit. The die score indicates that the magic user would hit an opponent of the armor class of the large spider, so the DM states you grab the spider, but as you do, you are now allowing the monster to attack you, even though you had the initiative, and it bites your hand as you hurl it towards the floor. Okay, that's not the interesting thing. The interesting thing is, in these rules, there's nothing about what do you do if you stamp something with your boot. But the DM has the magic user roll a d20. Now, the closest thing I would have thought of as a kid is, well, I guess I'm going to have to use the pummeling rules because there are pummeling and grappling rules in here. But there's no real rule saying you use a d20 to do unarmed combat. So it's kind of interesting. I'm reading this as a kid going, that's interesting. Okay. Doesn't seem to line up, but whatever. Anyhow, let's see what happens. Amidst groans of horrified anticipation from the players, the DM rolls a d20, but the low number which results in a clean miss by the arachnid. Yugg, the nasty thing misses you and is now scuttling along the floor where you tossed it. Lead character, who is nearest to the spider? Whoever it is will smash it with a weapon. So that's what's going to happen. I'm not going to ask anybody where it is. It was hurled down the southwest, and it is now heading for the wall to climb back to its web overhead. The cleric is the nearest to us. Other character, The cleric, of course, I squashed a nasty thing with my mace. Of course he does. It's actually a good idea. And here the player, having already gained savoir-faire, rolls a d20 to see if his strike is successful. A 20, and the beaming player shouts, I got it! DM, you're right, and you do. With these words, the DM rolls a d6 to determine the amount of damage. 6 points. That's heavy. Heavy enough to kill it, in fact. It is smashed to pieces. What now? Dungeon Master rolls damage. A lot of you knew this, but, in the old editions, a lot of times that's what happened. You didn't roll your own damage. It's just kind of an interesting thing, because that part of what that does is it sort of keeps things a little bit obscure. The book here talks a little bit about hit points and what they actually are, and the idea that a person with 20 hit points can't survive 5 times, 5 sword thrusts, while the person with, 4 hit points can only survive 1. It's the idea that some of that is avoiding the telling blow, as Tim Cass would say. So part of keeping that mystery, how much damage did you really do? How many hit points does this thing really have? What's its fighting ability really like? Maybe one of the reasons that the Game Master rolled damage. But they rolled damage here. Anyhow, let's go on. What now? Lead character. Everyone will do what we set out to do in the first place. If nothing valuable or interesting is in the sacks, the cleric will then help the magic user search the refuse and burn the webs overhead in case there are any more spiders hiding up there. Did they talk about this first? Not really. DM, the sacks hold rotten grain, so the cleric will go and help the magic user as ordered. As ordered. They find the refuse consists of castings, some husks of small victims of the spider, hide, bones, and a small humanoid skull, and 19 silver pieces. Do you now fire the webs overhead? Lead character. Examine the skull first. What kind of humanoid was it? Can we tell? Interesting. I thought the fighter was looking down the other corridor, but apparently he's directing everything that the party's doing. DM, possibly a goblin. When you're looking at it more closely, you see that there's a small gem inside, a garnet. Lead character. That's more like it. Put it safely in your pouch, along with the silver pieces, good cleric, and light the spider web. That's awesome. The cleric doesn't say anything. DM, the strands burn quickly, flame running along each and lighting the others untouched. You see several young spiders crisped as the mass of webs near the top of the chamber catches fire. Lead character. That's that. What is seen down the 3 corridors leading out of the place? The east passage appears to turn north after about 30 feet or so. The south tunnel runs straight as far as can be seen, and the west corridor ends in the door at about 20 feet. Lead character. Come on, fellow adventurers, let's head west and see what lurks beyond the door. The other players concur. So marching order is established, and the gnome and halfling lead the way. This is one of those things that pointed out to me that they weren't talking about beforehand. The other characters concur. There was no discussion beforehand. They said, okay, let's do that. All right, okay, you are marching west, DM. 10 feet, 20 feet, and the passage ends in the door to the west. It is a great heavy thing, bound in corroded bronze. There is a huge ring in the center. Magic user, lead character. Magic user, step forward and listening at the door. Gnome and halfling, see which way it opens and get ready to do so. You can see my point here. DM, rolling a d6 behind a screen so the players cannot see the result, which would normally indicate if noise were detected or not, if applicable, when a character listens. In this case, the DM knows what will be heard, but pretends otherwise. There is a faint moaning sound. You can't really tell what it is, which rises and then fades away. The door pulls inwards towards you. The hinge is on the left. And that's an interesting thing right there. I talk with a lot of my friends that haven't played these older games, and we talk about rolling in the open or not rolling in the open. And I was just talking to Samuel G a little while ago on his podcast. This idea that, this is something that the players would not manifestly know, the character wouldn't manifestly know, if they missed. If maybe there was something to hear and they didn't hear it, which is one of the reasons that very often for things like that, the roll was done in secret by the game master, because that way you didn't know if you missed something, or if there was just nothing to miss at all. Anyhow. Lead character, we all get ready. I'll knock an arrow, and the magic user will ready her magic missile spell. He's picking the spell the magic user is going to use. As soon as we are set, the cleric and the gnome will pull the door open, the cleric closest to the hinge side. Ready? Go! DM, each of you who are opening the door, roll a d6 for me to see if you succeed. I see from your character sheets that the gnome has a normal strength, so he'll need a 1 or a 2. The cleric has 17 strength, so he'll do it on a 1, 2, or 3. Eager hands roll the dice, and each succeeds in rolling a score low enough to indicate success. Smiling, the DM continues. The door groans inward, and a blast of cold, damp air gusts into the passage where you are, blowing out both torches. Here, As about three turns have elapsed, the DM rolls to a d6 to see if a wandering monster appears. The result and resulting 5 indicates none. So, time's being kept. Procedures are being followed. Fortunately, no wandering monster. Lead character, thinking quickly. Halfling and gnome, what do you see with your infravision? Should we slam the door? They don't even get to decide. Hey, man, let me see if I can see now. I can see in the dark. DM. It takes a few seconds for their eyes to adjust to the darkness, and then they tell you they can detect no creatures. Everything appears to be the same temperature, cold. Now, as much commentary as I'm making, this is still really cool. I've read this thing a million times. You can see all the stains on the side of the book. There's chocolate stains and everything else in here. Lead character. Cleric, it is time to use your light spell, for we'll never get torches lit in this wind. Cast it on your 10-foot pole. There's a delay while the cleric complies. And then, we are now poking the bright end of the pole into the place and looking. Tell us what we see. And the cleric complied. You know why? Because he read this book. He didn't want the game master to punish him. All right. Tell us what we see. DM, the space behind the door is only rough-hewn and irregular. It appears to be a natural cave of some sort, which was worked to make it larger in places. It is about 25 feet across and goes 40 feet south. A small stream, about 15 feet wide at one place, but only 6 or 7 feet wide elsewhere, runs south along the far wall. There are 3 buckets and several barrels in the place, but nothing else. So once again, great game master just describing everything that's in the room, describing it in such a way that it can be mapped. Lead character, check the ceiling and the floor. No more nasty surprises for us. If we note nothing unusual, we will check out the buckets and barrels quickly. Aside to the others. This was probably the water supply from the room for the monastery, so I'll doubt if we'll find anything worthwhile here. It's another indication to me right here that this lead character never asked everybody else, what do you think we should do? There was no discussion. Then he's just saying, okay, well, there's probably going to be nothing in here anyway. All right, other character. Where exactly is the wide spot in the stream? I think that I'll check out that pool. I think this is a cleric if we find out later. The DM tells the player where it is, so he heads over to the place. Now, I'm looking into the water with the bright end of my staff. That's kind of how you figure out it's a cleric. Actually thrust into the liquid. What happens? DM. First, the others checking the containers find that they held nothing but water or are totally empty, and that the wood is rotten to boot. You see a few white eyeless fish and various stone formations in a pool of water about 4 feet to 6 feet deep and about 10 feet long. That's all. Do you wish to leave the place now? It's kind of weird right there. The game master is giving them like, okay, what do you want to do now? And kind of saying, do you want to leave? Which is weird, as opposed to waiting for the players, the lead character, to say what they're going to do at this point. Although, let's see. Yeah, he didn't really tell the game master. I'm looking back there that they were going to leave. Otherwise, he just said what their actions are going to be. If we check this and there's nothing there, we'll check that. All right, anyhow. Lead character, yes, let's get out of here and go someplace where we can find something interesting. Other character, wait, a cleric. That's me saying the cleric. If those fish are just blind cave types, ignore them. But what about the stone formations? Are any of them notable? If so, I think we should check them out. Is he disobeying here? Should the game master punish them? DM, okay, the fish are fish. But there is one group of minerals in the deepest part of the pool which appears to resemble a skeleton, but it's simply, and right here, the other character interrupts him. If the pole will reach, I'll use the end to prod the formation and see if it is actually a skeleton covered with mineral deposits from the water. I know the Shakespearean bit about a sea change. Why did the other character interrupt the game master like that? He must have gotten excited. DM, you manage to reach the place, and prodding it breaks off a rib-like piece. You see bone beneath the minerals. As you prod, however, a piece of the formation is caught by the current, a cylindrical piece about a foot long, and it rolls downstream. Lead character. Where were they? They were probably by the door, I think, trying to say, hey, let's get out of here. Lead character. Run as fast as I can to get ahead of it. Jump in and grab it. Quick. Some of you get ready to pull me out if the water is over my head. Kind of funny. DM, you manage to get ahead of the piece, jump into the water about 4 feet deep, and grab at it, but you must roll a d20 to hit to see if you can manage to grasp the object before it is swept past you and goes downstream into the pipe-like tunnel which the stream flows out through. Once again, another use of this d20 mechanic to see if you hit something with no real instruction anywhere in the text that you could do that. I mean, you got a good example of you could do this, but still, really? Okay. Where am I here? The player rolls and scores high enough to have hit armor class 4. The value of the DM has decided is appropriate to the chance of grasping. So the DM continues. And once again, I'm not against making the ruling. It's just kind of funny that this is the first place anything like that appears in the text, the only place as far as I can tell. And there's no discussion anywhere else telling us kids, you could do this. You could use this as a method to figure something out. Especially because there's the pummeling rules. Anyhow, you are in luck this adventure. You have the object, and it seems to be an ivory or bone tube with a waterproof cap. Lead character. As soon as my fellows help me out of the stream, we'll examine it carefully, and if all appears okay, we'll dry it off thoroughly and open it very gently. Once again, who's playing right now all this time? Cleric has played a couple times. Lead character. The fighter's been playing the entire time. The gnome, the halfling, and the magic user, I don't remember them ever actually playing. All right. Oh, it gets better. I forgot about this. DM, there's nothing difficult involved. So after drying it off on the gnome's cape. This is the game master saying that's what happens. You break the seal and pull out the stopper. Inside is a roll of vellum. So far the gnome player, who gets more stuff later on, as many of you know. So far right now he's a cape. All right. And a torchbearer. So after drying it off on the gnome's cape, you break the seal and pull out the stopper. Inside is a roll of vellum. Lead character. Let's get out of here now. Shut the door, get some torches going again, and then read whatever is on the scroll. The others agree. Once again, pointing to the fact that not a discussion. They say, yep, sounds good, Fred. And in a few moments, the actions have been taken care of. Now, carefully remove the scroll and see what is on it. The tube must have allowed a bit of water to seep in slowly, for there are parts of the scroll that are smudged and obliterated, but you can see that there's a map of the passages under the monastery. There's that map here. The map is someplace. It's actually really cool. Let's see. Yeah, there it is. Look at that. Awesome. So, great example of what a map should look like, including like a legend about things like trapdoors, secret trapdoors, all that kind of good stuff. Let's see. You recognize the stairs down and water supply room. It looks as if the eastern portion is smeared beyond recognition, but you see that the south passage runs to a blurred area, and beyond that you see a large area with a coffin-like shapes drawn along the perimeter. That's all you can determine. So the map that they have is not that full map, but something a little bit different. I wonder at that point, it doesn't say here, if the game master, hands them a map, what it looks like. Lead character, we go back east 20 feet, which takes us back to the entry chamber, and then we'll head south down the long corridor there. We will look carefully at the map we found to see if it shows any traps or monsters along our route. Traps or monsters? DM, you are at the mouth of the passageway south in the center of the south wall of the entry chamber. The map doesn't indicate any traps or monsters. Here be dragons. So you go south down the passage, 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet, 60 feet, 70 feet, 80 feet, 90 feet. The passageway is unremarkable, being of stone blocks and natural stone with an arched ceiling about 15 feet high. At 90 feet, you come into the northern portion of a 50 by 50 chamber. It is bare and empty. There are no exits apparent. It seems to be a dead-end place. Here, the DM makes a check to see if any wandering monsters come, but the result is a 2 on D6, so there are none. What are you going to do? Lead character, we'll look at our map again. Does this look as if it were the room with the coffin shapes? DM, certainly not. The place seems to be about where the blotched area is, but there are no passageways out of it. Lead character, let's tap along that south wall, especially in the center 30 feet, to see if it sounds hollow. The cleric, gnome, and halfling will do the tapping, while the magic user and I watch back the way we came. So, everybody go do that. DM, rolling a few dice behind the screen several times, knowing that tapping won't show anything as the secret door is 10 foot above the floor. Pretty interesting here. That, once again, like I talked about before, for those of you that are maybe newer or just never did this, that way you're searching for something and, you don't know whether you failed or not. And, if the game master just doesn't roll, so if there's nothing there, well, there was nothing there. So, anyhow, where are we? Because it starts to get interesting again. The entire wall sounds very solid. You spend a full 10 minutes thoroughly checking, even to the far east and west, and all three are convinced it's not hollow beyond. You're convinced. However, the gnome who you placed in the middle noted some strange holes in the wall. These were square places cut into the natural stone, each about half a foot per side and a bit deeper. There were 2 at the 20-foot and 2 at the 30-foot line, one above the other, the lower at about 3 feet and the higher at about 6 feet. He found some small splinters of wood in one. Now, it's interesting. He put the gnome in the middle? Well, I guess they said the cleric, gnome, and halfling, so the gnome's in the middle, which is fine. Just kind of interesting, because they never said the gnome was in the middle. Other character. I'm guessing it might be the gnome. Does the smudged area give us any clue as to what the holes could be for? Let's feel around inside them to see if there are levers or catches or something. Lead character, interrupting. It's indicated by an ellipsis. Yes, look at the map and carefully check those holes with daggers first. We don't want to lose fingers or hands. So lead character, the one that's really good at playing D&D, as Tim Cass would say. Don't lose your fingers and hands doing that. When all that comes to naught, can anyone think of why there would be wood splinters in the holes? There must be some sort of clue. So interesting, right here, he's actually conferring with the other players. What do you think, guys? I'm kind of stumped. Other character. Not really sure who this is. The only thing I can think of is that the holes are sockets for some sort of wooden construction. Interrupted. Sure, how about a ramp or stairs? How high is the ceiling in this place? DM. Oh, must be at least 25 feet or more. Lead character. Let's form a human pyramid and see if there's a secret door higher up on the wall. Right here in the center where the passage seems to go on southwards. I'll form the base, and the rest of you help the gnome and the halfling up and hold them there. Use the pole while they tap. What do they discover? No, it doesn't say that everybody assents to this. It's just the DM now tells them what happens. The halfling at the top of the stack has a 1 in 6 chance of slipping and bringing you all down. A roll of 4 follows. But it doesn't happen. And both the gnome and the halfling manage a few taps. And even that feeble work seems to indicate some sort of space beyond. A couple really funny things here. Actually, really cool thing. The game master just comes up with this ruling on the fly that the halfling has a 1 in 6 chance. It's one of those things that, like, if you don't know, in older D&D, one of the things you do is, the D6 is a very useful tool. If you're not really sure, okay, roll D6, roll for low. 1 in 6 chance, 2 in 6 chance, 3 in 6. You can kind of set difficulties that way fairly well. So that's pretty cool. And it's cool that he said it's kind of low. All right. And here's the interesting part as they discover the secret door. Spoiler. Right beforehand, the instructions talk about, like literally right before this example of play, talk about this idea that, you players can search for secret doors in a variety of ways, or they can actually search for them. And tell the game master exactly what they're doing. I'm pulling it this way. I'm turning it that way. I'm tapping the thing, the wall, or whatever it happens to be. Also, the player's handbook talks about these, X and 6 chances of discovering a secret door. If you're an elf or a regular person, the DM guide talks about that here as well, and says, well, either way is applicable. Either way is fine. And that's one of these, mixed messages we got as kids. And then the debate ranged for forever about player skill versus character skill, to the point where different games got written, giving you, going in one direction or the other. So it started back there. It's kind of interesting that they left both of them in there, and left us kids to debate which way was the best way, or if one way fails, can you do the other? Anyhow, let's see. Some sort of space beyond. Lead character, let's change the plan a bit. The cleric and I will hoist the gnome up and hold his legs firmly while he checks around for some way to open the secret door. Meanwhile, the halfling and magic user will guard the entrance so that we won't be attacked by surprise by some monster while less engaged. Good tactics. Nobody asked to know if he was okay with being hoisted up there. DM, doesn't even, assuming this is actually what's going to happen. No discussion happens. DM, you accomplish the shuffle, and let's see if anything comes. A D6 roll for wandering monsters again gives a negative result. The guards see nothing, and what is the gnome doing now? Other character, the gnome. I'll scan the stone first to see if there are marks or some operating device evident. DM, some stone projections seem rather smooth, as if worn by use. That's all you were able to know. Other character, then I'll see if I can move any of the stone knobs and see if they operate a secret door. I'll push, pull, twist, turn, slide, or otherwise attempt to trigger the thing if possible. DM, the fist side fist-sized projection moves inwards, and there's a grinding sound, and a 10-foot by 10-foot section of the wall, 10 foot above the floor, and the center part swings inwards to the right. They discovered the door and opened it. He discovered the mechanism. Interesting, but all player skill and creativity. Other character, the gnome. I'll pull myself up into the passage revealed, and then I'll see if I can drive in a spike and secure my rope to it so I can throw the free end down to the others. Deciding for himself what he's going to do. DM, you get up all right, and there's a crack where you can pound in a spike. As you're doing it, you might be in for a nasty surprise, so I'll let you roll a 6-sider for me to see your status. Make the roll. Groans as a 1 comes up indicating surprise. The DM then rolls 3 attacks for the ghoul that grabbed at the busy gnome, and 1 claw attack does 2 hit points of damage and paralyzes the helpless character, whereupon the DM judges that the other 3 would rend him to bits. No dice are rolled. It's a judgment call. Good judgment, in my opinion, but still. However, the DM does not tell the other players what has happened. Despite impassioned pleas and urgent demands, he simply relates, you see a sickly gray arm strike the gnome as he's working on the spike. The gnome utters a muffled cry, ah, and then a shadowy form drops him out of sight. What are you others going to do? Doesn't tell the players what has happened, including the player playing the gnome. He has no clue his character has just died. And maybe if the lead character told the gnome what to do and how to do that, maybe he was better at playing D&D. Maybe the gnome would have survived. I don't know. What are you others going to do? Lead character, ready weapons and missiles. The magic user her magic missile spell, and watch the opening. So once again, lead character is playing D&D. The other players are there to maybe be the magic user that has a magic missile spell, but not so much, or to watch the door. DM, you hear some nasty rending noises and gobbling sounds. I used to love this as a kid. But they end quickly. Now you see a group of gray-colored human-like creatures with long dirt and blood-encrusted nails and teeth bloodied and bared coming to the opening. As they come to the edge, you detect a charnel smell coming from them. 4 of them, in fact. What will the player characters do? What will the party do? Will the cleric realize they are ghouls and attempt to turn them? Will he succeed? If not, there may well be no survivors. If so, what treasure lies beyond? Possibly the great gem, which I think is what they were told was in this monastery. But the thief still awaits the party's return, the thief being the NPC that led them here. Well, that is the stuff from which adventures are spun, and now you know how to spin your own. What will the party do? Well, we better ask the lead character, because nobody else is going to be able to tell, or is going to be able to tell the game master what they should do. Otherwise, he'll have to punish them. So, this is the stuff I read as a kid and reread, and I enjoy the events of that sample adventure. It's really cool, gives you a lot of cool ideas. But when it came to the subject of the party caller, you can see why I was a little hesitant, or a lot hesitant to use one, because I realized, based on all the context clues in the way this was written, that the person that was actually playing Dungeons and Dragons for 95% of the time, if not more, was the player of the fighter character. I don't recall the magic user ever playing. I believe the magic user, no, they did say they were going to try to stomp it with their boot. I'm sorry. So you don't actually see play going on very much besides one character, besides the lead character. And you're given instructions that they're supposed to be the decider, the decision maker for the group. And if other players are dissenting, well, that may cause, problems, and it's going to be confused and muddled. And then maybe the wandering monsters will come and get them and all that sort of thing. So, hope you enjoyed story time. What I'm going to do, hopefully, is read next out of this book. This is my first thing I ever got. Look how worn this thing is. And read the sample adventure from that and the actual sample adventure of combat. Maybe I'll read the sample combat from this another time, but I would really just do that because I love the names like Gut Boy Barrel House. And see how different this one sounds. All right, kids. Talk to you later.